Right, so now it's being recorded. First of all, let me say thank you for joining today's webinar. I hope you'll find it useful. I hope you'll find some great insights on how to automate your accounts payable process. So let's first talk about the topic for today's discussion. It will be how to improve your accounts payable process with automation. My name is Alex Kesselman. I am a solution engineer at ApprovalMax, and today I have a special guest, Laura Manson. Laura, if you could tell us a bit about yourself and about your role in the business, that would be great.
Yeah, so I run LJM Bookkeeping Limited. I've been a member of the ICB for 13 years. I was Luca Small Practice of the Year winner 2 years ago, and I also took up a role on Advisory Council this year. So I sit on the ICB Advisory Council. As I say, I've been running my practice 13 years, went limited sort of 18 months ago, and have about 50 clients all across the UK, working remotely with cloud-based softwares, predominantly Xero, and offering everything up to an outsourced finance department for my clients.
Awesome. It's great having you here. So the topic for today's discussion, as I mentioned already, would be how to improve your accounts payable process automation. But before we'll dive in, let's first of all outline what are the challenges with the accounts payable process in the first place. So what we see typically when we're asking our customers, we see 5 major points where customers are facing some of the challenges. Some of them are such as like missing and duplicate invoices when they receive maybe some potential fraudulent invoices. So they need to keep track on whatever been approved versus not. On top of that, it's adding additional challenge with the manual approvals, because when you need to send all of these multiple notifications and keep track on whatever been approved versus not, it takes a lot of your time and you've been doing a lot of this meaningless work, while you could be actually switching your focus on some a bit more strategic planning and data analysis. On top of that, with the manual process, it brings us to the high cost of paper-based process when you need to store your paper, you need to archive it somewhere, and you really need to keep track on all of the financial documents that you have in place. It's also brings us to some additional tools like fraud, let's say, some of the financial documents that were sent by mistake, or maybe some suppliers that were trying to make some phishing emails. So it gives us additional challenge. And of course, all of that outlines with a lack of data visibility. It's really hard to see what was your expenditure, how does that compares against the budgets, how does that compares to the purchase orders that you raised, and so on and so on. But that is like a general idea behind that. So Laura, I would like to ask you, from your perspective as an accountant expert, what do you see as the main challenges from your customers? So what are the biggest accounts payable challenges from your perspective?
As you say, one of the biggest things is missing and duplicate invoices. So making sure you've got all of that paperwork. And I know all of us in bookkeepers, how much time do we spend chasing clients for paperwork, trying to get things into VAT returns, whatever that might be. Now, I use Dext for that purpose, but I know you guys integrate directly with Dext, so you've got some of that integration and can use it to sort of get some of those, avoid some of those duplicates perhaps, and also have that paperwork being processed. And then actually making sure that what you've got and what your clients are expecting. Now, sometimes in my role, I might be liaising directly with suppliers on my client's behalf. So actually making sure that what I've got and what I've received from the supplier is actually what my clients are expecting and what they're expected to purchase, the cost of it, whatever else. And then actually, how do you find out that? So how do you fit in to your client's process and to their internal team without constantly being the person bugging them? Which is, we want to, but obviously you've got to have that. You want to make life as simple as possible for your clients as well. So having something like ApprovalMax with the app, with the other bits that come into it, means that it's easy. It's one thing they have to focus. They can tick, they can approve, they can say yes, they can say no, whatever it is. And you've got that. The other thing with then is you've got that full audit trail. Who's signed off on it? Who said what on it? Is there a comment that's come back? There's a comment that comes back to the whole team. So you've got a lot more than just 300 emails going backwards and forwards, and then which piece of paperwork are you actually talking about? Oh, I've got to attach it. Well, actually, I was talking about this piece rather than this piece. So having some of that communication, being able to see that within the screen and being able to track what pieces of paperwork what it's on is obviously, again, a key thing to make sure you're all talking about the same item.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. I see lots of our customers before they start using some of these automation tools that the issue they're having that when they have the email thread of about 200 emails in just one piece, the initial conversation was already changed like 6, 7 times, and it's almost impossible to find what was in the beginning, what changes were made, and how would they actually react on all of those things. So by the end of the day, they're just completely lost in all of these different communications, and it takes forever to approve even a single invoice. What happens when it comes for hundreds or thousands of these documents?
Well, that's the thing. And also, I work, because of the clients that I work with, so I work predominantly with service-based limited companies that have a small internal team. So there might be different people that need to sign off different pieces of information or different invoices, dependent on what supplier it's from, what the amount, what they're buying. So actually, part of the thing about communication is making sure you're speaking to the right person, because if you're if you're communicating with the wrong person in that team, you're not going to get a quick response because they won't know anything about it. So being able to set up workflows and have sort of concurrent workflows running that send the right people, the right approvals to the right people, again, is going to speed up that whole process and mean that only the people that need to deal with it are dealing with it. So that's going to make their life simpler, because I have a client that has a CFO. Now the CFO doesn't need to see anything, because it doesn't need to see everything, but might need to approve certain purchases. So we're able to set that up and go, well, actually, the manager of this department can see these invoices. That's what they've ordered. The manager of this department can see these invoices. Oh, okay, it's above a certain amount. We need the CFO to sign off. So being able to set those rules and set them up specific to each business is really helpful as well, to make sure, because not, as all of us know, every business is different in how it runs. We might have two clients doing exactly the same thing, but running their businesses in completely different ways. So being able to have the sort of flexibility of making sure that the right people are seeing that information without having the wrong people involved makes everyone's life a bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely. But I would like to take a step back here and think about the whole accounts payable process as a whole thing. What, from your expertise, would you think about should be automated in the first place? So if we'll take like a list of priorities, where should we take a look on, and how should we string the process to make the whole accounts payable a bit more effective?
Well, my whole business motto is accuracy, continuity, and efficiency. And around that, as I say, I use Dex. I'm not one for typing in invoices manually. That's a thing that I think can be automated with the correct rules in place, again, with some care and consideration. And so for me, it's about how can we reduce the amount of times that we enter that information. If we've got that information in one place, so for example, if I'm raising a purchase order in Approval Max and then turning that into a bill and then expecting, like, matching it to the paperwork, that's a lot simpler and more efficient process than keying in a purchase order, keying in a bill, keying in the next stage of the thing. So how much manual data entry and how much rekeying can we reduce? So we've got those items coming in. Now, it may not be you making that payment for the end of the day. It might be your client doing that, or you might be using a third-party payment provider to do that, which is brilliant. But you don't want your client to pay something until it's been checked. So the automation's great, but how do we make sure that that's what we're expecting? So by connecting up into Approval Max, having that purchase order in there, having that approval system, and then that bill only appearing in your accounting software, whether that be Xero, QuickBooks, etc., once it's been signed off, obviously adds that extra layer of control around it, because whether it's you making that payment or whether it's the client making that payment, you know that that payment's been authorized through the correct channels. I know as well you guys do the contact approvals for Xero as well, so making sure that actually if you're setting up a new contact and a new supplier to pay and you're putting all those bank details in, Is someone signing off on that? Is there, that's, I know there's a lot of concern around from bookkeepers around making payments because it's a big thing. It's not your money. So how can we encourage some controls, some extra steps, know that the client has full visibility on that and can sign off on all of those steps as they go through, so that actually at the end of the day, you're sure that when that invoice comes to that payment process, all the information you've got is correct and that invoice can be paid, whether it's you, whether it's the client doing that, as I say, whatever you're using. It means that you've got that extra level of assurance. It's not going to be a phishing, because clients, if you've got those, and we all get them, how many do we get a week of, and they're getting cleverer and cleverer, aren't they? And you get the, hi Laura, can you pay this for me? And actually we're putting that in the system, the client's seeing it and going, well, I didn't authorize this. So you've got that extra level of having the ability for the client to sign off, whether that's using the web platform, whether it's using the app, which is absolutely brilliant as well. You know that whole thing. And using, whether you're using purchase orders as well, we're putting that in. Once it's approved, once that purchase order is approved, it's going out to the client. You don't have to, it's going out to the supplier. You don't have to send that. You can set it up so that when whoever needs to sign it off has signed it off, that's going out automatically to the supplier. So that's making your life easier. Supplier then has a purchase order. You can then match that. You can see them side by side. What were we expecting in? What have we got it? Open them up on the screen side by side, see the differences, match it to the budget. Oh, actually, we've gone over the budget that we were expecting on this. So it gives your client a lot more control and it gives you a lot more control. As you know, Alex, I ran Approval Max while being a production accountant for a TV show this year. And on that TV show, not only my client had to sign things off, but the end customer had to sign things off. So we set them up on Approval Max, and they had the app. Once it had gone through, I created the purchase. Me and my team created the purchase orders. My lovely virtual assistant Gemma did some of the work here, and we created the purchase orders. Once we'd had the quotes in, we created those. They got approved. They then went to the US team to sign off, and it was only at the point at which they'd signed off that then that supplier got their purchase order with all of the details on there. And it was quite handy. One of them went away for a day. So we turned on the auto thing and it automatically sent all their purchase orders to a different person. So it meant that the whole system wasn't slowed down because we were running very, very fast turnarounds on this to make sure it was sorted. So we had multiple people in that approval step, which actually included the end client. Now, at the end of the day, when we came to do the reconciliation, I had to send them everything and they printed everything off and signed it by hand. And they were running around London with lever arch files. And funnily enough, things would get taken out of the piece of the file, not go back into the file, or go back into the file in the wrong place. So they were spending an awful lot of time reconciling things when I could just run the report from Approval Max. I could see who signed it off, when it was signed off, were there any comments, were there any changes. So I had full visibility and we were able to run a TV show with myself and some ICB support, but literally while I was running the rest of my clients for 1% of the budget. So that again allowed what was a multi-million-pound program from our side was actually, we had all that control, we had that visibility. It didn't matter what time it was. It didn't matter that I was in Peterborough, they were filming in London and Paris, because I had full visibility of everything. Everything was still coming into me. And at the end of the day, when I got an invoice in, could I match it to the purchase order? Were we expecting it? Was it anything else that I was expecting? And actually it made out my side of things a lot simpler, because I had an idea as well of what I was expecting in, what costs were we expecting, what did we need to pay out. Whereas, as I say, they were running around London with literally pieces of paper and giant lever arch files.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I've heard so many stories like that, especially on the US market. I see a lot of them are still trying to get into this cloud accounting, trying to automate the process, but overall the still vast majority of them using some of these manual error-prone processes where they print out the documents, they keep all of these different folders, many tons of paper. It's completely getting lost all the time. But coming back to these examples that you're making, one is a TV show. If we'll take overall your experience with your customers and when you implemented Approval Max into their system, what you would say would be the essential features that really helps your business and really helps your customer business to grow?
Well, as I say, part of it is cost saving. There is a massive cost and time saving, because having all that information to hand, especially if you print something out, you've not just got to print out the invoice, you've got to print out all the documentation around that invoice, because there's no point you looking at an invoice with no backup information if they need to sign it off. So having all of that information in one place and being able to, as I say, compare on screen side by side, cuts down the amount of time, whether it's me doing it, whether it's the client doing it. And having that whole data assurance, the comments on the post, seeing all the steps it's gone through, again, on each of the, within your notes section, within Approval Max, being able to see all that communication around that content as well, really cuts down on that communication need outside, as you say, the string with 200 emails and actually where's the frigging attachment in the email, kind of going back and forth through threads, those kind of things. It really helps cut down on that. So you've got the right information you need quickly. You can see what has been signed off, what hasn't been signed off. You can obviously set your deadlines and things as well. So actually, if there's an urgent thing, can we make sure that it's put to the top of the queue and we know it, rather than someone stamping urgent and it goes to the bottom of the file on the piece of paperwork, or there's however many emails, and I know all our inboxes are going to be flooded, and sometimes the urgent doesn't always pop up, or you have however many urgents, and a bit like this morning, you can't find the thing that you want to get into the link. So there's all these things that we're dealing with. Having a specific system where everything not only is there, but then you can report on it, because you can build your custom reports on it. You can see which ones have been rejected. You can see, oh, actually, that got pushed through. Should that have been pushed through? Sort of all that fraud element side of things, if anyone sort of tries to go round the approvals process. And actually, you've got a lot better idea of the costs that are coming up if you're using the purchase order side of things. And obviously, I know any of these workflows you can use either as part of a whole chain, or you can just pick and choose which workflows you want. But you can see, okay, we've got a budget. Have we gone over budget? Because you've got that ability. I know with Xero, you've got that ability to link in with budget side of things. And you've got that information in one place, which is a key thing. How many times, oh, I need to go and search for something, look in Approval Max, and you've got that full audit trail. If it's gone into Xero, then you can go click through and go into Xero as well and see that you've got that process. So you've got the ability to set it up, and whether it's one person, and actually, as I say, I work with teams, but actually if you're running this and you're running it with a very small business, but you are the one making payments, you could run Approval Max so that you've got that assurance that actually the client has signed off on things at the end and they are happy with everything before you're making those payments. So you've got different ways that you can run Approval Max. It doesn't need to be for a big company, but if it is a big company, as I say, you can do the departments, you can do different levels of authorization dependent on what things. And you can even have, I know you've got in your higher level ones, you've got the auto approval. So actually, if you're running something like Dext, or you're running it where it's picking up the bills from other places, and it's their electricity bill, or it's their mobile phone bill, or it's whatever that doesn't need signing off, well, we can set up a rule for that, and it doesn't need signing off. So that's going to go straight into the accounts process. If it's something that's being paid on direct debit, right? Okay, we'll add that into the auto approval rule. It can go there. But being able to have that control and have that workflow that works for you and your client is very important, because I'm all for software. I love software, but it isn't a case of one size fits all. Software should always be tailored to the needs of your client. And with Approval Max, what I found is that even if that means that the end client needs to be in on it, in the instance of this, then actually you've got that ability to do that. You can invite in as many users as you want, because it's not a per user basis. So you can have as many scenarios within that specific client as you need to make this whole process work for you and your client.
Yeah, absolutely. And having your knowledge here and having your expertise working with different customers and working with the different apps that they're in the App Store and the marketplace, here we have quite a large amount of great professionals watching us today. what would be your advice to them? How they can start making the process a bit more effective and stay relevant in the always changing world of these different apps and the ecosystem?
Well, I think it's first thing is that you've always, as I say, each client is different. So you need to understand the problems within your clients' businesses. Where is the bottleneck? What do they need? What do they want? And what other systems are they using? So what starting point are they using? Are they starting from Xero or QuickBooks? So, and if so, what sort of connects best with those? What are the features that you've got? As I say, what are the bottlenecks that your client has got? Is there something that we can do that helps your client work towards that real-time information, that's visibility, understanding their business better because they have their numbers, understanding where those numbers come from? So there's a lot of software out there, and I know it's very easy to get software overwhelmed, but it's a case of a lot of these sorts of softwares. And when I came across you guys in the first place a few years ago, it was because I had a client with a specific need, and I went out and researched what software might be out there to fill that specific need, to fill that approvals need. So have a sit down and talk to your client and say, Xero, QuickBooks, whatever is a great first step. What else can we do that will help your processes? And what else can we do that will help you and I together run your business better? You don't want to spend your time doing the finance element. That's what I'm here for, but you're going to need to get involved. I can't just run it on my own. I'm going to need your sign off. I'm going to need your communication. I'm going to need documents, etc. from you. So how can we work together to make that process as slick as possible, as easy as possible, so that you get the results you want and you have confidence in the end of the day in those finances, in those figures. So when you see a bill that needs paying, you know that if it isn't you that's checked it, one of your team's checked it, that there's something in there to give you that confidence and control as a business owner, but also allow us as bookkeepers to provide them with that sort of information, to be able to answer those queries and to be able to do it all in a quick and efficient way without missing any of the key information. Because that's the great thing. You can do all this, you put all these systems in place, but actually, are they giving you what you need? Are they giving you what the client needs? And are you making sure that you've got all the key information to actually do the compliance side of things at the end of the day? And if yes, brilliant. And if no, your client's struggling with it, well, I don't want to have to log on. That's fine. We've got an app. Pops up on the app. You can do it. You can click yes or no. What's there? So making it as easy as possible while actually maintaining all that data.
Oh, that's great piece of advice. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Well, now as a last piece before we'll dive into the Q&A section, in case you've never seen Approval Max in action, in case you haven't seen the way it works and how we can build up the workflow, I'll show you a quick demo of the way it works and how we can actually build up the workflow and see the way it will look like from our users. And then we'll jump straight back into the Q&A section. So feel free to write any questions in the Q&A section of Zoom while I'll be showing you the way it works. And just to give you a bit of a context, though we already discussed many things today and how Approval Max is easily integrated with both Xero or QuickBooks Online, and by the way, right now also Oracle NetSuite, but the whole idea behind the product is actually quite simple, that it's just an add-on to your accounting software, which allows you to create very easily a multi-step and multi-level approval workflow based on the rules, based on the information that you have back in your Xero or QuickBooks Online account, such as your suppliers, such as your tracking categories, such as your nominal codes. So here, one of my companies called Galata LLC. If I'll take a look on one of these workflows, let's say I will take a look on the purchase order workflow for now. We'll see, well, I've been working on this one already, but I will explain in a second what each and every part here means. Basically, in case once we've started the process, if we have several or many people who will be making their approval decisions and those who will be raising the purchase orders, we can just add them all in bulk into just one system without giving them any access to Xero or QuickBooks Online at all. And then we can provide them with specific rules. So here, let's say on the left side of the screen, I have my purchase order creators, those who is allowed to raise the POs within the system. So if I'll take a look on my requester matrix, I will see that I can provide very, very specific permissions for each of my users on what type of things they allow to use when they're raising such purchase orders. I might have certain people who have no idea about the chart of accounts, So perhaps I would like to limit them to only certain things. And I will be able to do that out of the list of my accounts back in zero. Let's say for Peter, I will allow him to only raise bills for nominal code subscription and only for department, let's say, sales. And just like that, I can provide such rules for each and every user from my list. And once they'll try to raise the POs, they won't see the full list of my accounts and they won't see the full list of my tracking categories. They will be only able to select out of those things that I've allowed them to see. Same goes for the approval steps. Here right now, I have only two approval steps, which is the head of departments and CMO, CFO, and CEO. Though I can easily create more and more of these steps as much as needed, there is really no limitation on amount on amount of approval steps. I just simply click on the plus sign. It creates an approval step for me. I can then drag it whenever I need to. Let's say this one will be our legal department. And then again, out of the list of users, I will add as many of them as needed. Then, within the approval matrix, I will define what these guys here now can approve. It might be based on the different parameters: amount, threshold, suppliers, your tracking categories, your nominal codes, or combination of those things. You can even create very exceptional rules. So let's say Scott will be approving everything from the departments IT and finance, but at the same time, I would like Scott to approve all the purchase orders from specific requester. Let's say all the POs that are coming from me will go to Scott, no matter what amount is that. And at the same time, if amount is less than £1,000 for supplier approval max, then it will also go to Scott for his approval. So I can really create either a very simple or later on a very complex matrix. So approval max allows you to grow alongside with your company, adding more and more people, adding more and more rules to your matrix, making sure that the process is unified and streamlined. Now, once we build a workflow, let's take a look on the way to look like for our users, because the only thing we really don't want, our users will just ditch the whole idea about automation and they will just stop using anything because they will be too overwhelmed with information and having this app fatigue. Here at ApprovalMax, we are trying to make it as simple as possible to our users to make their approval decisions. Basically, the only screen that you will need, and that will be the first screen that you will see once you log into your account, it's called Requires My Decision screen. This screen will show you everything that is awaiting your approval. In case you're working with many companies, you will find all of the requests across all of your companies, or if you're working with different workflows, you'll find everything within just one place. On the right side of the screen, I will see the actual requests. I will see where it came from, my amounts, what I need to approve. Straight away, I can see my buttons approve and reject. And if I'll click on reject, it will ask me to provide the reason for such rejection. I will see all of my line items. In case I have any attachments, I'll be able to see them either in side-by-side mode or in a full screen mode, whatever preferred. And even better, the whole process that I'm showing you right now, also possible on the go via our mobile app. So you can raise your purchase orders, you can approve them, you can receive your bills from Xero or from Dex or from anywhere else and approve it, do the bill to PO matching, do the budget checking, all kind of things are available for you just from the palm of your hand. And once we've approved a bill, let's say I've got this bill from Apple, once I've approved it, it's automatically streamlined into your Xero account with one very important document that will allow you as an accountant to see that your approvers, your decision makers, they're actually made an approval decision on time, and we know who actually made that. So if I'll take a look on the bills that were already approved, I will see that for each of the bill that I've approved or for each purchase order credit note, I'll have a specific status, if it's being paid or if it's been just approved yet. Moreover, I will find that there is an audit report, which will show me who made the decision, why they've made it, and when they've made it. And same audit report also is automatically streamlined over to your Xero account, where you can easily find all of the proof about the actual decisions that were made by your team or by your customer. So that is an overall overview of ApprovalMax, though there is so many other things here on the back of the product, such as the bill to PO matching and customizable reports, fraud detection and analysis tools. But the general idea on how you can really create within a couple of minutes a unified and streamlined process would be something that I've shown you right now. So with that being said, we're coming to the last part, which is the questions and answers. Feel free to ask any questions. Let me stop sharing the screen and let's see if we've got any questions.
I think that's the thing, isn't it, Alex? That, as you say, everything is within Approval Max, but is also linked directly to your accounting software. So if you're using Xero or QuickBooks, you can take those users that don't need to be in the accounting software out of it, and they can see what they need. But actually, if you go back into there, once those POs and those bills have been approved, you actually get the report from Approval Max along with the documentation. So like you get your attachments if you're using Dexter or other or auto entry, as well as those, you also get your sign off document from Approval Max in Xero as well, don't you? So you've got those. Actually, if you want to be, or someone wants to be just in Xero, and you let the team do what they need to in Approval Max, you set it up and they do what they need to. If you're actually just working in Xero, you can see, right, okay, this was signed off by XYZ, because that sign off document will be there with the attachment, with the original bill attachment. So instead of just having that one attachment, you're actually going to have 2 attachments on there as well, aren't you? So you've got full visibility, whether you're in Approval Max or whether you're in Xero or the accounting software.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's also from the security standpoint, having your users have access to Xero in the first place is quite a bad idea, because they will be pretty much exposed to all the financial data. Though you have some possibility to limit them what type of things they're allowed to see, still they will have access to a lot of this financial data that you probably do not really want them to see. At the same time, not giving any access to Xero and just making your approvals via emails gives us additional challenges, maybe some potential fraud, that people can create a phishing email and send you something for approval, but in reality, it's just a malware solution, software. Therefore, having an all-in-one place where users will need to have access and they have the actual voice on what type of things they're allowed to approve, will make the whole process much more unified, streamlined, and much more secure from that perspective. All right. I see there is no questions for the moment. Well, I hope that, because everything was super clear. And yeah, so to conclude here, since we don't have any questions, first of all, give it a try. There is a 14 days free trial, and you can play around with all the features of Approval Max, and then decide what's there for you, and if that can be possible to integrate it into your company, in your day-to-day needs, and make your process a bit more streamlined. And thank you, Lara, for being here, for sharing the information. And
there is also, I was going to say, there is also, I did the ICB accreditation report. So if anyone wants a more detailed sort of breakdown with, I think it worked out about 13 pages long with screenshots and all sorts, then I think that's going to be shared, or you can find that in the software or software section of the ICB website to sort of read through and see my full views on the software. As I say, Alex, I think there's lots of uses out there. It doesn't need to be a big company with lots of different sign-off processes. It can be just giving you that assurance that actually your client is happy with everything that you're processing, and they can see everything at that point, whether that needs to be. And even from your perspective, my perspective, brilliant if clients see Xero, but actually, again, having that, can we do read only in Xero potentially, so they can see everything that's in Xero, but they're not able to mess around with it. As we know, sometimes clients like to get a bit click happy, and actually can we use Approval Max as that process? So even if it's a case of a sole director or a smaller business, it isn't like you need, given the cost as well, it isn't like you need a sort of full multi-corporation to run Approval Max. It could be 1 or 2 people in the business, and actually you're still getting that level of assurance of the benefits from Approval Max without, as you say, having that sort of clicking around in Xero, deleting things by accident, all this kind of thing. Because again, if you've got Approval Max connected up to Xero and they delete something in Xero, it's going to tell you in Approval Max that it's been deleted. So you've got that extra level of assurance on there, and communication with clients. And that's the thing, isn't it? How can we provide the best service to our clients and keep our clients happy and give them all that information they need without hassling them too much, and without providing that sort of annoyance level, because that makes the whole thing work smoother for us and for the clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I see we've got a question. Karen is asking, how do you base your pricing? So the pricing works is very, very simple. It's purely a flat fee, purely depends on the amount of organizations you're willing to onboard. So there is no limitation on the amount of users, let's say you've started with 10 employees who will be making your approval decisions, but you grew up by 100 people by the end of the year, it's no problem at all. Your price won't change. So the only difference here is between the features that you really want to see in your account. There is standard plan, advanced, and premium plan. All have different set of features. So then you can just simply decide where you'd like to start with. You can always upgrade or downgrade whenever needed. So it's very, very flexible in terms of how you can start your account and what type of plan you'd like to implement into your day-to-day business. But you can always take a look at the approvalmax.com/pricing. You will find that there is a calculator which will allow you to see what will be the price for you if you have, let's say, several Xero entities or several QuickBooks Online entities. And then you can just decide which plan you would like to select, what features are essential to you, and decide on your purchase decision.
Yeah, because it's a rolling 30-day license, isn't it? It's that rolling license like we're used to with a lot of software companies now. And as you say, you can upgrade and downgrade. So if you've got a busy period or someone's coming on or there's a specific project, I've done it where there's a specific project that a client's working on. So I've upgraded the plan for that project to add on those extra sort of the build PO matching and the budget elements, the sort of more advanced elements. But actually when that's not needed, we can drop it back down to the base level. So it gives you full flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Is there any questions left? It seems like we're all good. Yeah, I see Patricia raising hand. Feel free to drop a question in the Q&A section of Zoom. It's right on the bottom of the screen. Yes. Thank you. Can Approval Max be used on any other software, such as Capium? It won't work with Capium. It works. We have a direct integration with Xero, QuickBooks Online, Oracle NetSuite, and Deer Inventory. So these are accounting platform and inventory platform which we can integrate with. But the thing is about Approval Max, the great thing about Approval Max, that in case you still want to create this multi-step, multi-level approval process, we do have a solution called the standalone workflows. They are not connected to your accounting software at all, but you can pretty much utilize it for any other approval process you can think of. I know some examples of our customers who are working in Sage, and since we are not integrated with Sage, but this customer really likes the idea, the way Approval Max works, and they like the flexibility. They've built a standalone workflow. They've created the approval process for all of their teams, and they've gave them permission to do that. And once something is approved, just as with the Xero integration or QuickBooks Online or anything else, we'll be generating the audit reports. So what they've been doing, they were raising the request within the standalone workflow. They would approve it. They would receive the audit report from us. Then they will just simply download it and attach that to their accounting software, which are not connected to us. So that's one workaround way in case there is a specific software that we are not connected to. Hope that answers your question.
Have you got, I can't remember, Alex, do you connect with Zapier as well? Have you got an API connection into if anyone else wants to do anything a little bit more complex on that side?
Well, the way we work and actually the way this cloud accounting, or the beauty of this cloud accounting, that we are using accounting software as itself as Xero or QuickBooks Online or Oracle NetSuite as a central hub. So we don't really care about all other apps on the market because we can connect to Xero or QuickBooks Online. And if any other apps can be connected to Xero as well, then we have a connection between all of us. So in that case, though we have a direct integration with Dext, we can at the same time work with any other OCR tools that are in the market. Same goes with payment. Since we are connected to Xero, any payment provider like Teleroo, AirWallex, and so on, they can bring these batch payment files and use it for payments. So we really have this integration among all of these different apps. It's just a matter of how would these other apps connect and how would they talk with Xero itself in the first place. If they can do that, then we have integration. Will that not be twice the work? It's extension of the previous question about to use the standalone workflow. Not really, because simply here, since we really don't want to add or give access to our users into, let's say, Capium or some other software, especially if they charge you extra amount for adding new users, you can create the whole approval process just within ApprovalMax. And basically within the Capium or any other software, you're just taking the audit report and attaching that to the request within the software. So there is no real need for you to send multiple emails afterwards. You already got your approval decision from everyone from your team, and you know what's actually happened. So now you can make a payment even within the software that is not connected to Approval Mac directly. Thank you, Patricia, for this question. All right, I see that we don't have any more questions. In that case, first of all, thank you very much for attending today's webinar. I hope that was useful. I hope you found some great insights. Thank you, Lara, for being a great guest today. Thank you for your insights and your great expertise. Have a lovely rest of the day, everyone, and bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, and yeah, good luck, everyone, and yeah, we'll hope to see you soon.